And hello again, and welcome to today's Canton Charge Community Shoutout. I'm Scott Zurilla. Glad you are with us. And it is a real pleasure to welcome in the director of the Stark County Hunger Task Force, Stephanie Sweeney. Stephanie, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Happy Monday.
Great to see you. Thank you for joining me. Now, Stephanie, when I see the words task force, I think big and I think important. So what's big and important with some of the main programs that you offer with your organization?
Sure. I think another thing that when you hear the word task force, you think a lot of action, a lot of activity, and that's definitely what we have going on here. We have sort of four main programs that we are running day to day here at our offices and at pantries across the county. We are actually housed in the Ken Weber Community Campus at Goodwill. So we're one of 21 nonprofits here on campus. Within the campus, we have three programs that run day to day. We have an emergency pantry, and that's a choice pantry. So that means that when the clients come in, they can choose what items they would like to shop for that day. On average, we see 4,200 clients a month in our emergency pantry, just the one that we have here at the Goodwill campus. Peak pandemic, we were seeing 6,200 a month just here on campus. So our numbers have kind of fluctuated back and forth through all of things as the economy has changed due to COVID-19. Another program that we run out of the campus is called Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which just is a fancy way to say senior boxes. And those are 100 supplemental food boxes that we give to 100 seniors here in the community every single month. Kind of what my heart is the Backpack for Kids program. So before I worked for nonprofits, I actually was a teacher for around 13 to 14 years. And I spent a good chunk of that time working in Canton City and working with low income children. And we just see the importance of the backpack program, especially now with all the statistics coming out for Canton City. Canton City has the second highest child poverty rate in the entire country, not just the state, but the entire country. So we've had this backpack program for around 15 years now, and I have been running this program since I started here 4 years ago. And what that is basically a weekend meal program for children. We serve Canton City, Massillon, and we also have a school in Plain Township. And we pack weekend meals for those children every single week. Right now, we are at 872 that we pack every single week that go to 9 different schools across the county. And we kind of struggled at first this school year to get our numbers where we felt we needed to be because there's so many children who are learning remotely. So we then started a remote learner program where we are, whenever clients come through the pantry, we ask, are your children learning remotely this week? We found out that language was important because schools were opening and closing, and we've all just had to adjust to all of that. So then each child goes home with 2 weekends worth of food in each backpack when they come in and do the remote learner backpack. The sort of last program that we have is something that people don't realize that we have because they just kind of see our brick and mortar here at the Goodwill campus. But we also have 40 pantries that are part of our network, and we financially and logistically support those pantries. That's what kind of makes us unique from other organizations, is that pantry support, where there are some pantries in the county that are part of our network that we are their only source of income. So we provide support to them, whether it be them using our trucks, or they can be beneficiaries of our food drives. But then they also are a big support to each other, and they take advice from each other and best practices.
Now, Stephanie, when I said task force is a big, important deal, See, I was right. You made it crystal clear with all of those programs that you just mentioned. You also mentioned the pandemic, and we of course know how it's turned everyone's lives upside down in one way, shape, or form. How have you had to shift your approach over this past year plus because of the pandemic?
We definitely had to be flexible and be flexible really quickly. So the first program that we saw a change to was our Backpack for Kids program that I had just mentioned. So it was, I want to say either the first or second week of March, the schools just they shut down and they weren't doing in-person learning in 2020. And my immediate thought was, how are we going to get food to these kids? Because at that time we were serving, over 800 across the county in the schools. So in that time, I had a ton of my volunteers reach out to me as well, like, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to get food to these kids? So between talking to my volunteers and writing down ideas, within like 45 minutes, we had a plan what we were going to do. And so we basically moved everything outside. So we did a drive-through distribution for a backpack program that we did every single Friday. So Backpack always runs year round because we do it in the summer as well. It just looks different. So we kind of like thought in that mindset, how we run it in the summer, but let's move it outside. So we were able to serve on average around 211 children every week, every Friday, running as a drive-through. And then 2 weeks later, the numbers kept going up in the county for COVID-19 cases. So we then moved our pantry operations outside as well. And I think kind of the biggest struggle with that was we needed so many more volunteers to make that happen. And we experienced probably, I would say, around 40 to 50% of our volunteers were in that vulnerable age demographic at the time. So we lost 40 to 50% of our volunteers, but we're so grateful, and we were so lucky because we never had a concern about having enough volunteers to keep that up and running. So we had to obviously pivot the way we distributed the food as well. So we moved to like a pre-pack kind of pantry, and then it was no contact. We also were lucky that Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, they worked in conjunction with some of our representatives in Congress and in the Senate, and they waived some of the financial requirements for folks to go through emergency food pantries. So that made the process a little bit more streamlined because you didn't have to do that extra verification and whatnot. So we had to quickly adjust. And we even had to like pack our backpacks in the hallway because the backpack space was being used for the drive-through. So our volunteers were amazing through all of that. Right now, we're kind of operating pretty much normal. We moved back inside in October because we're open 5 days a week, and we don't want our volunteers, outside for long periods of time in the Ohio winters, and the winters can last until April here sometimes. So we quickly moved back inside and are running pretty much things like we normally did, except we have a separate room for our intake. And the clients will actually go in the pantry, they fill a menu out. So as things change, we have changed, and our volunteers have just been so amazing and flexible with us.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Again, a lot of times it just takes, whatever changes need to be made to make things work. So that's great. I also understand, Stephanie, that you're celebrating your 40th anniversary this year, which is fantastic. Congratulations to you. How will you be celebrating that this year?
Sure. So it's kind of funny because we hit the 40 pantry mark this year in our 40th anniversary. So we thought that was kind of cool to couple the two things together. So I love a good theme. So when I found out it was our 40th, I kind of like ran with this. So one thing we're doing is we're running kind of like a decade campaign, and we're running a 40 for 40 campaign. So this month and May are the 80s. And then it continues on every 2 months is a different decade that we'll focus on. So every person who donates $40 or more during that time period, they get entered to a raffle for like nostalgia swag from that decade. I mean, I love nostalgic items. I mean, I still probably have a lot of my stuff from the 80s and from the 90s. I had a 90th birthday party a couple years ago. Like, especially like, I think like my generation, they really kind of like to be reminded of their other childhood. So that would be a kind of a fun way to tie it all together. And it's also just a fun way to get people involved. So we're doing the 80s up until May, and then the 90s will be in June and July. The 2000s will be in August and September, and then so on and so on. And then we'll end with the 2020s. Another thing that folks can do to get involved in our 40th anniversary celebrations would be to host decade days at their office. So it's like a jeans day, but more fun. So the premise would be if this month or next month you wanted to, organize something like this in your office for Stark County Hunger Task Force, you could just reach out to me. My email address is stephanie@starkhunger.org. And what it is basically just like a jeans day, just way more fun. You would dress in your 80s or 90s attire, wearing like your bright colors, and then to participate in it, you would donate like $5 to $10 to Stark County Hunger Task Force. So you could do this virtually as well, because I know a lot of people still are working from home. Although I never did that. I couldn't pay attention. I don't think I'd be distracted too much. So I'm kind of happy to be here in the office every single day. Another thing that we're looking into doing is having some concerts that would be sort of decade focused. And those would be, at a local venue with a local artist who'd be playing music from that decade. And then that would be sort of like a live fundraiser for us, where people could donate online or they could donate there on site.
That sounds like a lot of fun, Stephanie. That's outstanding. Before we let you go there, you gave your website a second ago. For those folks that are interested, they like everything that you have to offer, and they understand the food insecurity today, and they'd like to get involved to help out. How would they contact you?
Sure. So they can contact me through my email, which is stephanie@starkhunger.org. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities right now, and we're going to be having even more here once June starts. So we do run our backpack program through the summer as well, and we've had to change the way we distribute for that too. So we'll need folks to help us pack out backpacks and do a simple intake process. We are expanding our backpack program into Massillon Alliance this year as well for the summer. So there'll be more bags to pack than what we usually have. We always need volunteers in our pantry, and our pantry is open 5 days a week, and that is during the morning and afternoon hours. So they can just go on our website. Another thing that you can do is follow our Facebook and our Instagram. We're pretty active on there. I talk too long and I'm too wordy for Twitter. I try to post things on Twitter, but I tend to be a little bit too wordy. Twitter cuts me off pretty much every single time. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Then another way you can get involved if you don't feel comfortable doing anything in person is we are always looking for donations. We have a large task to do every single day in combating hunger in Stark County. Every cent that's donated to us, it stays here in Stark County. It stays here in the community. If you are tech savvy, we got real fancy last year and got text to donate. So easiest way you could donate is to text hunger 21 to 44321.
That is fantastic. Stephanie Sweeney from the Stark County Hunger Task Force, thank you so much for all the information and your time today. And of course, all the best moving forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.